Good evening and welcome to the April 20th regular board meeting. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Here.
Mrs. Mooring?
Here.
Mrs. Horn?
Here.
Mrs. Coates?
Here.
Mr. Manley?
Here.
And if you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is wonderful to see the room so crowded. I apologize that it is incredibly beautiful outside and we're all in here. But we are going to get started and get moving, so hopefully the reason that you're here, I think, is probably, my guess is that you're here early on the agenda, so you'll get to enjoy the sunshine a little bit more tonight. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the March 2nd board workshop meeting, the March 14th Finance and Facility Committee meeting, and the March 16th regular board meeting? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any corrections to the minutes at all? Okay. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. So we are going to start with the best part of our evening, which is the recognitions. And we are going to begin with the first place DECA State Marketing Champion team winners. I don't think Mr. Lynch is here tonight. Is Mr. Lynch here? Okay, but I think we've got the students, so do I want to turn it over to you to introduce the students? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Deagle.
Come on over. And they've all gotten taller. So for those of you, I know we have many board members who are parents of past DECA students, but for those of you who do not know, DECA prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs for careers in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. For the past decade, the Gahanna-Lincoln High School DECA chapter has placed among the top 10 DECA chapters in North America. And this group in front of you has continued the rich tradition of excellence with DECA. Gahanna-Lincoln High School DECA chapter members earned the organization's highest honors at DECA's 67th Annual State Development Conference in Columbus, Ohio, March 10th and 11th. During the school year, approximately 5,000 of Ohio DECA's student members take part in the organization's competitive events program, allowing them to compete for district and state titles. The competitions are designed to stimulate real-life business scenarios and test students' academic understanding and skills development. Gahanna students presented and defended their 20-page marketing research and business plan projects that they conducted for area businesses during the conference. And I'd like to recognize 3 groups of students who earned first place finishes. In the event of hospitality research, their client business being Marco's Pizza, a first place award went to Emily Marzitz, Ali Kovacevic, and Lindsay Earnhardt. So congratulations to your group. For the event of integrated marketing campaign for the client business of Chick-fil-A, I hope you got lots of free food, a first place went to Jocelyn Bullumin, I'm so sorry, and Zhao Jing Lin for, again, integrated marketing campaign. And then first place in business services research for Longhorn Steakhouse. You guys choose really wisely. First place finishers were Luke Murray, Henry Colbert, and Drew Pizzico. Thank you. Congratulations. Madam President, I would also just like to mention that these marketing students will put their talents to test during the International DECA competition in Orlando, Florida. I mean, really, guys. Orlando, Florida, April 22nd through 26th. You're leaving soon. Good luck to you.
Good luck. Have fun and be careful, says the mom. Next, we are going to honor our indoor boys track and field state champions. I think Coach Johnston, if you want to come up to the podium, if you could introduce the boys and have them come up to the podium as well. Thanks.
I'd like to have Maxwell Cummings, Thomas Newby, and Drew Pizzico. Welcome back, Drew. So these three seniors, we are missing Romero Wells. He's currently working right now. But these guys are back-to-back indoor state champions. Last year, they actually set the state record in the event, which they still have. So it's pretty awesome to see. Maxwell has been in the program now for 3 years. He has been on the 4x1 or 4x2 state championship relays for 3 years in a row now. Thomas is in his second year with us. He is now he just had his second team in the state championship, so he has experience. And then Drew Pizzico also is a 3-time state champion runner in Ohio. So we are looking forward to this spring. Currently, the 4x1 is ranked number 1 in Ohio, 4x2 is ranked number 1 in Ohio, and the 4x4 is ranked number 2 in Ohio. So, exciting times.
Drew, did I give you yellow or blue before? You gave me blue. Okay, you can have yellow. Thanks for coming tonight. And then next we have Kendall Smith, who is a Daisy Girl Scout, and Mrs. Wharton, who is the president of the Girl Scouts of Ohio. I'd like to welcome you both up to the podium.
You ready? We're going to do a tag team here.
Yep.
So I am Tammy Wharton, President and CEO of Girl Scouts of Ohio's Heartland Council, and I'm delighted to be here in my own home community, as well as Kendall's home community. As you may or may not know, women make up over 51% of the working population, but they're underrepresented in the fields of STEM. 18% in STEM leadership, 15% in engineering. So we're really delighted that we at Girl Scouts do a lot of different STEM programming, including an electrician badge that was in 1912. So we've been doing STEM for a long time. And we do a lot of other hands-on activities which our girls participate in. And it's really exciting to not only see the girls thrive and excel, but also witness firsthand some of the things that they're doing on their own. So one of our very own Girl Scouts, and it's Brownie Girl Scout right here, Kendall, she wants to be the first African American to walk on the moon when she grows up. Now it gets better because she won an essay contest that was created by NASA to put more women of color on the moon. And can I pull this off? All right, can I bend it down? I'm going to bend it down and say, here. There we go. She's going to tell you a little bit about what she won, because it's pretty special. Can you just speak that up?
I won the National Moon and Back Essay Contest, and I got a patch that went to space on the Artemis 1 space shuttle. It returned from space in December, and it got shipped to me.
So not everybody can say they have something from space, but Kendall can until she goes there herself. So this is you all might want to get an autograph because, Kendall's going to be one of our future astronauts and just do a world of good for everybody here. All right. Love you, and I will call you. Okay, good.
And then next, I am going to welcome up Mrs. Mann and Mrs. Lopez. If you could introduce the students, that would be lovely. To talk about the tree campus.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Mrs. Mann. These are some of my students that came with me today. And basically last year we filled out a grant to attempt to become a K-12 tree campus. We love all of the trees that are on our grounds, but we really wanted something that the students could participate in, take ownership and empowerment in. And I'm really proud of their work, so I'm not actually going to talk much because the kids have this. And they worked hard on this presentation. They created a lot of the script, and I couldn't be prouder.
Hello. This year, Royal Manor is participating in a year-long effort to learn about trees and their importance to our environment and to human beings. We would like to thank GJPS for awarding us the Grant of Excellence to purchase learning materials for our entire school. We would also like to thank Margaret Brown for providing these shirts to all the students and staff. Our goal is to become a nationally recognized K-12 tree campus through the Arbor Day Foundation.
Grade level is taking place at Royal Manor. In the fall, classrooms adopted trees in our playground. Here's Woody, our 5th grade class maple tree. Some classes studied and made observations about the trees during different seasons.
Our class read the book Be a Tree. We loved finding out how humans and trees are alike. We created a video to spread the word and encourage every student to join our Royal Manor Forest because we are stronger together. Trees talk, support one another, and take care of their seedlings. So let's be tree-tastic people.
4th and 5th grade members of our after-school K-Kids Club designed a fundraiser for the organization One Tree Planted. For every $1 donated, 1 tree would be planted around the world. Students wrote kind and uplifting messages on leaves to add to our Royal Manor forest. So far, Royal Manor has raised $425, which means 425 trees have been planted somewhere around the world because of us.
At the beginning of the school year, Gahanna Parks and Recreation took us on an arboretum walk. An arboretum is like a tree museum or gallery. We learned about native Ohio trees. We also researched and wrote opinion pieces about why trees are important. It was tremendous. We are also lucky enough to have our very own class bonsai tree. His name is Coffee Bean. We wrote scripts for the news and taught others about bonsai trees. Our kindergarten classes had a blast constructing forests, complete with woodland creatures. I think these are amazing. They also learned about parts of a tree using an illustrated diagram and practiced their spelling and writing skills using tree words. They labeled the tree's bark, leaves, roots, trunk, and branches. Awesome!
Look at the amazing research booklets our second graders created. The booklets teach about tree parts, their life cycles, and their seeds. They also wrote opinion pieces about their favorite seasons, create illustrations of trees during that season. I don't know about you, but I'm really impressed. These are unbelievable.
Good job, Grant.
First graders learned about the parts of trees and how they help our planet. They designed diagrams with labels to show what they learned about these valuable resources. Our 4th and 5th grade classes used their geometry knowledge to design tree blossoms. They include mathematical writing to explain how they made their blossoms. I don't know about you, but I think this is terrific.
One Wednesday, we were visited by Gehanna Lincoln Jr., Braden Fodder. Braden is a global scholar, and he is working on a project called Landscaping for Lives, which encourages us to plant trees to fight against air pollution. His goal is to plant several trees at our new high school for future students to benefit from. Students in the audience asked great questions like, did it take a lot of bravery to start this project, and how can we help out and get involved in our community?
Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. We hope we can inspire other kids that they can make a change. After all, trees are an unbelievable topic.
We are so proud of them. They did a lot of great work, so thank you guys.
Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. And parents, thank you for bringing kids. I know it's an incredibly busy time of year. But you made our whole night, so thank you for letting us celebrate you all. Thank you. And I should say, if there are students that are here tonight for government class, at the end of the meeting, you can come up to me and I will sign the paper that you have for the class. If you don't have the paper anymore, that's okay too. Just give me something to sign and that'll work at the end of the meeting. So we are going to move into school community reports and presentations, and I am going to turn it over to Gehanna Lincoln Student Council President Blake Briel.
So I want to preface by saying that a certain someone on the school board informed me this was my last time being up here, which was in fact not true, as I found out today. So a lot of my speech was going to surround, the end of the year and just some like closing remarks, and I was going to cut all that out, but I think I'm going to leave a lot of it in because I said some important things and I want it to be heard. So if it sounds like I'm leaving, I'm not. I'll be back here in May, I promise. But, I won't point any fingers, but Mr. Manley, So this month has been a hectic one for student council members as we have multiple large events all taking place at the very beginning of May that we need to prepare for. Our annual Teacher Appreciation Week and subsequent Teacher Appreciation Luncheon will take place during the first week of May in order to show the immense gratitude the student body has for the faculty at the high school. They work hard every single day in order to ensure our success, and we want to pay it back in a little way that we can. We have been in the midst of planning small gifts for the teachers every single day, as well as a large central event in which teachers are provided catered lunch and an opportunity to win raffle prizes and other packages over the lunch. Additionally, last year, the school year concluded with a Senior Sunrise event in which the senior class got together on the football field to celebrate their graduation. Because obviously we do not have that choice at the moment, a team has been working on a replacement Senior Sunset at a local park on May 18th. Though official details are lacking at the moment due to numerous roadblocks in planning with both school administration and with Parks and Rec. So I will get back to you on when I have that, because I will be back. But while these are both important and exciting in their own right, of course, the most exciting project we've been working on and the greatest headache of mine over the past month has been the Gahanna Lincoln High School 2023 prom dance that will now officially take place on May 6th at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. Led by Dylan Raymond, who I have with me tonight, the juniors on Student Council have worked hard to put together decorations and details on such short notice with the venue and everything else that has occurred. With the theme, At Last I See the Light, a reference to Disney's Tangled, it should be a very fun and memorable event. Tickets will be on sale in the coming weeks for $45, and other details should be out soon enough. Other than that, this past Friday, our wellness officer, Isa Rivera, who is also with me tonight, put in her committee who helps with mental health events at the high school, put together a mental minute event in the high school gymnasium during the lunch periods. The event had yoga, games, and various booths, all serving the dual purpose of allowing students to relax and have fun for a bit while learning about the mental health resources that are available to them at the high school. There's a lot of resources there from clubs, counselors, everybody else, so to have it all in one place for everybody to look and know what they can have, especially going into AP tests and final exams, is very, very, very important, especially to someone like me who has a lot of tests coming up. In short, the combination of these events and initiatives has occupied everyone in and outside of school hours in order to ensure everything runs smoothly and effectively. Before I leave, I just want to say directly to the board a big thank you. Throughout the year, all of you have been incredibly positive and supportive in every crazy project that I take on. Everything from Student Council's Gahannathon to Workshop Club that I began, Key Club that I am now involved in, and other little thing that I've tried to do to make our community and school better. I have been incredibly grateful to truly get to know and talk to all of you. It has gone far beyond simply being the head figures who have the final say in purchase orders and anything else that I want to get approved, but people that I can actually wave at and recognize in public and be friends with and have a nice conversation. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. Even after drilling Dr. Deagle with questions at the end of last year, I've been able to work on things with all of you and have all of my big outlandish ideas come to fruition in a palpable way. I know I'm not the first kid to stand at this podium, and I won't be the last, but I hope you all remember me and treat the next student council president, whoever it may be, with the same level of support you had for me. There are countless students of all grades in this district who, if they can just find their family here, can do a lot of good. So I want to bring that out of them to see everybody push to find that family here in Gahanna. I've campaigned all year for every student to find their pride in this district, and although that goal is miles away, I believe I have created a palpable difference that will continue after I graduate. Thank you. Once again, thank you. I'll see you next month. Don't worry. And keep doing great things for our district. Thank you.
Next, I would like to welcome Mrs. Swisher, who's here for Gahanna Jefferson Education Association.
Hi, I'm Chris Swisher, and I am the German teacher at the high school. I'm also a GJEA rep. Drew and everyone in Student Council, the teachers truly appreciate the Teacher Appreciation Luncheon. As soon as I got the email that told me, hey, the Teacher Appreciation Luncheon is coming up on May 4th, I clicked on the email and said, oh, let me get in there on the Google form and order my lunch. We have several options from which to choose. So for some of us who are vegetarian or have other dietary restrictions, we really appreciate that. As soon as we get to the auditorium lobby on that day during our specific lunch period, student council members are there to greet us and get us entered into the raffle. And once they finish serving everyone, and we've taken about the last bites of our delicious meal, they come around with dessert, and then they also begin to announce the prizes. Last year, I won coupons for ice cream. So that was really nice. You guys do an awesome job of getting prizes and the little treats every day, and you guys really make us feel appreciated. So I'm very thankful that you're here and just spoke about that. GJEA is currently, while we're on the topic of food, GJEA is currently preparing for the awards dinner, which will be held in May at the Airport Marriott. They have very good food. We honor our members who are retiring. They have a worksheet to fill out. There's a worksheet, we're teachers, there's a worksheet involved. And it has some questions about some of their most memorable moments, good and bad, and some of the things that they'll miss and what they're planning to do in the future. So we honor our retiring members. We also have several scholarship winners, students who are currently pursuing becoming teachers or who are in high school and planning to pursue becoming educators. We also have a GJEA's Friend of Education Award that we present. So it's really nice over at the high school to see the new stadium going up. I know we can't use it yet, but when they took the old stadium down, it was like a part of, I mean, I'm not really an athlete, but it was like a part of me like was gone. And so once I saw, hey, there's a stadium there again, yes, it just feels so much more normal. So I'm glad we're making progress on that, and it feels a lot better. So, yeah, while we're on the topic of food, right? Homerooms. This year, Jessica Williams has instituted homerooms that are by grade levels. It really facilitates some things that we do, like panorama surveys or things that need to be done by grade level, or all of the sophomores come down for a class meeting. It makes things a lot more organized for us. But it also lets us build relationships with kids who we would normally never have, which is really nice. They're all in the same grade, and there's some really great things about that, but they're also, you know, with the good comes the bad. Thankfully, our administration doesn't just say, well, I said it's going to be this way and you're going to make the best of it and that's it. No, that's not them. They're always looking to refine and improve. So we met recently, all of the teachers by future grade level. So I'm with sophomores this year, so next year I'll be with juniors. All of those teachers got together, looked at their own interests. We formed groups, and so I'm in the arts and crafts group. And so we'll have brainstorm time, and then we'll come up with activities for our homerooms to do. And the idea is that teachers will continue to loop with the class, but we'll be able to connect with those kids while we're doing activities. I don't know, they gave us questions at the beginning of the year that are just, you know, what are you doing over the weekend? And then you pass around an object, and that only goes so far. So hopefully not only will the teachers connect, but when the kids have activities in common that they like to do, we're hoping the kids will connect too. I know I can think of a couple of kids that just have a really hard time connecting with others, and I hope this is just one more way that we can reach kids. And it's time built into the school day where the kids don't have to stay for an after-school club that gets canceled. This doesn't get canceled, it's homeroom. So So those are some of the things happening at the high school. And thank you very much for your time and for all of the time you put into serving our community.
you. And next, from OPSI Local 249, Jerry Moore.
Good evening and greetings from transportation. I always struggle. First couple months went really well, and I felt like I had a pertinent topic to talk about. And I meet with Tracy every other month, and I talked to her this past month about the message is a little stagnant. I mean, transportation done well is quite honestly boring. You shouldn't be hearing from me if things are going well. So bringing something here was getting more difficult for me to figure out, and then it fell in my lap, kind of like the convocation did when you said the topic was going to be the joy in education, and I'm like, oh, yes. So this month, you've probably, if you haven't seen the video, you've certainly heard about the video that went viral of the poor bus driver in Amherst. And I'm not here to talk about the video. I'm just going to compare and contrast because I have an interesting, what I think is a contrast to that. If you drive a bus, if you're in education, if you're a parent, you've had a bad day. This poor lady had a bad day. Hers was captured on video. And happens to the best of us, and you hope that it doesn't. We have a lot of good days. And I'm here to contrast the bad days that are captured on tape and the good days. As you know, we give an annual scholarship out to a deserving student, and we will do so again this year. And as part of that process, the students that submit have to submit some sort of an essay or an application. This year, one of the applications included a statement regarding one of our bus drivers. And I just wanted to highlight a couple things that were mentioned in this. And the bus driver's Larry Watley. Larry's been around several years. He was union president a few years back. He retired and came back. It's a running joke out there when you retire. You'll be back. It's just a matter of when. But he had a nice letter by a student written about him, and I highlighted a couple things. Mr. Watley taught me 3 things that I carried with me to high school. He was a middle school student when he was on Larry's bus, starting in 6th grade. He got all 3 years with Larry. 3 things that I carried with me to high school: the football team, the baseball team, and my work. The first was commitment. Every day Mr. Watley showed up and did his job. I was fortunate enough to have one bus driver the whole time I was in the school that he was in, and that doesn't happen very often, but he did, so good for him. Second, he was always showing up for the others. He showed up for me the first week of school. The gist of this letter in the background is this poor 6th grader, first week of school, leaves his backpack on the bus. It's got his Chromebook in it. He's panicked, petrified. What he didn't understand is what I understand now. I had a 6th grader on my bus leave his instrument on the bus for the 4th time this year. I just text his mom, and we make arrangements to get it back to him. So 6th grade's a rough year. It's a rough transition year. But he left his backpack on the bus. It had all of his stuff. It had his Chromebook in it, and he was mortified. And Mr. Watley showed up at his door that evening, knocked on the door, and returned his backpack to him. And all was well in his world. Finally, Mr. Watley taught me to go the extra mile. He showed me what working above expectations is about and why making that extra effort matters. So for all the videos you see out there, there are a lot of people doing a lot of good things. And I think you already know that, and I think most of you already know that, but I just wanted to say it. So on behalf of the bus drivers, we will continue to do those great things. And just like Blake, I will see you next month.
I have to say, Jerry, that was a perfect message. Thank you. Next, I am going to welcome from OPSI Local 299, Jennifer Ryan. or you have to follow Jerry on your first night here, but we are very happy that you're here.
That's a lot to follow. I mean, goodness. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Ryan. I am a resident of Gahanna, and with my husband Sean, we are proud parents of 3 children who have attended Gahanna Lincoln High School. Our oldest child overcame adversity through the pandemic and graduated from the high school in 2021. We have twins that are juniors currently, and one of them has 11 pieces of art downstairs in the art exhibit. The other one has been inducted into National Honor Society and National Technical Honor Society and is in the bioscience program currently, with a lot of other things as well, but we're very proud parents. I'm here, obviously, for Stephanie, but I wanted you to know that I attended, just a little background on me, I attended Purdue University for special education and have worked over 20 years experience working with children with special needs from infants to high schoolers. And I've been an educational aide for Gahanna Jefferson Public Schools since 2015, and I'm currently a one-on-one aide for a special needs student at the high school. I was asked to speak with you tonight about my experience, one of the many things that I do, which is job coaching. You ever notice, like when you see the Olympics or you hear a really great musical group and you're like, that just looks so easy to do, like the gymnasts that are doing their things, like, oh, I could do that, you know. Well, I think that when someone does their job very well, it looks easy. And I think that that applies to the bus drivers and our educational aides. And as an educational aide, I feel that we're expected to do many things, and we're pretty remarkable at what we do. One such thing is job coaching. So as a job coach, what I do is I assist our students in a work environment, and it's thanks to we have a transition specialist that works with us, and in partnership with local businesses such as Pet Supplies Plus, DSW, Barnes & Noble, Bob Evans. They're just a few. There's a lot more. And I show them what they need to do to be successful at each job. I document the work, and I evaluate each student and collect data for the intervention specialists. And if a student has a physical challenge that they experience at work, we usually work with physical therapists, occupational therapists, and other services to see what accommodations would be necessary for that student. If they have a cognitive or behavioral challenge, we work with their workplace managers as well as other intervention specialists in order to problem solve. The job coaching that we offer for most of our students is a first-time experience with real occupations similar to what they may have after high school. It gives students a feeling of accomplishment and the satisfaction of a job well done, as well as a sense of pride. They go to work just like all their other teenage peers and are able to contribute positively to our community. Educational aides are expected to do many things. We're very good at what we do. We are more than someone who documents data, though, in job coaching. When I'm not training students, I'm helping with other subjects in their high school classes. I assist students in the general population as well, so not just our special needs students. And educational aides wear multiple hats throughout the day. We are more than just extra adults in the room who make copies, deliver mail, staple papers, run errands, assist with assignments, and proctor and modify tests. We are expected to do many things. We are masterful at what we do. Educational aides bring confusing concepts to clarity. We are a trusted shoulder to cry on. We are someone whom students may vent their problems. We keep students on task. We're detectives. We notice details while focusing on the individual when others focus on the group as a whole. We are expected to do many things, and we're amazing at what we do. Educational aides soothe the nervous. They calm the angry, guide the lost, de-escalate conflict, explain the unexplainable. We're a voice and an advocate for the voiceless, and reassure those who thrive on consistency and continuity that things are going to be okay when their routine is thrown off for that day. We are expected to do many things, and we're extraordinary at what we do. Educational aides are kind to the unkind. We listen to broken hearts and anxious minds. We coach about hygiene and teach them about appropriate behavior in social situations. We make the complicated manageable, unlike the way I can say that. We are positive in a world of negativity. We are expected to do many things, and we're awesome at what we do. We are the front line of communication at school. Students put their trust in us to help them. They confide in us, not just with schoolwork, but in all aspects of their lives. We are the smile our students see second thing in the morning, first thing being bus drivers. But we're right there when they get off that bus. But above all, our students know that we care about them. We are expected to do many things, and we are marvelous at what we do. I was at Kroger a few months back when I was recognized by a student who approached me as I was checking out. "Excuse me, ma'am, you work at the high school, don't you?" Yes, I do. Yeah, I work at the high school. I said, "I just live right behind there." And he said something very curious, I found. He said, one of my teachers told my class he doesn't live in Gahanna. He doesn't want to see any of the students when he's out in his community. And I went, that's a real shame. Because I told him it was unfortunate that he was told that by his teacher. Because I love my community. I love contributing to this community and working with the students where I live. Of all the aides that we have, I think there's around 100 of us. 85% of our educational aid staff lives in Gahanna. We love our community. We care deeply for the students in Gahanna. We look out for each other in our city. And I'm proud to contribute to our community as a job coach to future members of our student workforce in Gahanna. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Jennifer, I think you did just fine on your first night here and even following Jerry. So thank you very much for being here. To all three of you, Chris and Jerry and Jennifer, thank you so much for what you do for our kids every single day. And thank you for coming here after a really long day and on a beautiful night, for letting us and our community get just a glimpse of what you do for our kids every day. Thank you. Now we're the ones who have to follow that. Mrs. Mooring, you're up first with a board report from Finance and Facility Committee.
Really? Finance and Facilities after that. I'll sound inspiring. I do love numbers, so it's where I'd like to be. We did have a Finance and Facilities meeting on Tuesday, April 18th. And we had, a very full agenda. We talked, we get an update monthly on our Phase 2 construction. And if you are curious about what that update was made of, you can go to and listen to the audio of that meeting. But we get an update on the high school, the middle school project at Middle School East, the elementaries that are just in punch list form, and those two projects are almost complete, and our athletic facilities, which we were out last night at a softball game, and the lacrosse team was practicing on the other field, and it's coming along. So that was the first item of business. We follow that with a financial report on that Phase 2 construction that our treasurer Gooding manages for us, so that we can keep track and observe the spending as it's happening. Then we had a monthly financial report, which he will probably detail, so I won't cover that. And then we had presentation about the budget request for next fiscal year. Our calendar runs from July 1st to June 30th, so we are preparing the budget and refining it for the next year, and then that becomes the base for a 5-year forecast projection. So we talked about both of those things as the final pieces of business. So it was a little bit long meeting, But thanks to our directors for their contributions, and it was a lot of good information.
This morning. Looks like I'm next with a legislative update. Not too long tonight. Okay, so the main thing that the legislature is working on right now is House Bill 33, which is the budget bill. On Monday of this week, the House introduced their substitute version of the state budget bill. And in the meantime, on the Senate side, they started some unofficial hearings. So the Senate doesn't actually get the bill to start official hearings until the House votes the budget out. But Senate got started with some unofficial hearings this week. The House substitute bill made several changes, including some positive things for public schools. One of the really important changes that they made is that they have updated the Fair School Funding Plan with fiscal year 2022 inputs, which is something that the Ohio School Boards Association, the Ohio School Business Officials Association, and the Buckeye, why do I always get Vassar wrong? Buckeye Association of School Administrators, all of the organizations that represent all of us had been advocating for. Some of the other changes in the House version, the substitute bill, I guess I'm going to start with some positive things. In the substitute version, they essentially rolled in House Bill House Bill 117 into the budget bill, and that is a bill, or that change would eliminate retention under the third grade reading guarantee beginning in 2023-24. The substitute bill also calls for a comprehensive study to determine the needs and how best to meet those needs of economically disadvantaged students. And for anyone making under $92,000, it reduces the their income tax to 2.75. Hopefully, that last change that I mentioned, everyone is hopeful that will accomplish some of the goals that were set out in House Bill 1, which we have been talking about for a while. That is a tax reform bill that is pending in committee, and it is hoped that this modification in the budget bill will be the conclusion, I should say, of the discussion that has gone on with House Bill 1. One of the other changes in this budget bill, though, is that it also increases voucher eligibility to 450% of the federal poverty level. So I guess I will say it is hoped that if the legislature and the governor do want to tinker with voucher eligibility, it is hoped that this is where it will stay rather than some of the other legislation that is pending in both the House and the Senate. The bill has a long way to go still, so I want us all to be hopeful and continue to reach out to our legislators if you have the means or time to do that. But it still has a long ways to go. The bill actually has to get voted out of the House Finance Committee and then voted out of the House as a body as a whole, and then it has to go over to the Senate where they will continue their hearings. It'll go through their committees, it'll get voted out of the Senate, and then ultimately it will go to the governor, who will have the final say on the budget. So it's got a ways to go, so be hopeful, but I will just continue to monitor and let us know. One interesting thing was in House Finance Committee today, there were actually several Republican legislators who asked some pretty tough questions about some of the changes related to vouchers, specifically questions about how do we make sure that we are fully funding our public schools before we have a conversation over here about vouchers. So that's a hopeful line of questioning. Just want to give updates on a couple other pieces of legislation that I kind of mentioned in that budget bill update, but House Bill 1, which is the tax reform bill, had its 5th hearing in the House Ways and Means Committee on Tuesday, and there were several submitted opponent testimonies. There is another hearing scheduled on April 25th, and that'll be the 6th hearing on that bill, and it is still not marked for a vote, which I think is a hopeful sign that it continues to pend in committee, but hopefully the actual changes that get made will be through the budget bill. Also want to mention that House Bill 117, which I mentioned before, which is elimination of retention of the 3rd grade reading guarantee. That bill just had its first hearing sponsor testimony in House Primary and Secondary Committee on Tuesday, and those provisions right now are in the budget bill. A couple other pieces of legislation. House Bill 12, which is the restructure of the Ohio Department of State Board of Education, had its 5th hearing in House Primary and Secondary Education Committee on April 18th. Right now, there is not another hearing scheduled on that bill, and the companion, which is Senate Bill 1, has not yet been scheduled for hearing. So I don't know where that's headed. I don't think anyone has a good sense of where that's headed. It seems that the House the House Republicans may be divided on what they want to do with that restructure. A couple other pieces of legislation. House Bill 6 had its, I'm not going to read the title of the bill, actually. It had its third hearing, which was opposition testimony on Wednesday, April 19th. I think there were hundreds of people who came to the State House to testify in opposition to that legislation. I'm not going to read the title, but what that bill is intended to do is usurp local control and kind of we have guidelines that public schools follow from the Ohio High School Athletic Association. This legislation would kind of usurp that guidance with regard to sports teams in public schools. Like I said, there were hundreds of people that came out to testify, and that testimony was abruptly cut off at noon. There were a lot more witnesses who were there left to testify. As the testimony was being cut off, it was uncertain whether there was going to be another hearing scheduled, but at the end this afternoon, a hearing notice went out for April 26th for invited opponent testimony. So the chair of that committee is inviting the people who traveled to come testify, if they're able to come back. He's inviting them back on April 19th. And then House Bill 8, which is called the Parents' Bill of Rights. It had its 2nd hearing in the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee on Tuesday. The committee adopted an amendment that would, among other things, remove discretion from school personnel from withholding information from parents or other guardians if there was concern that that information might result in abuse of their children. I don't think that, so it was voted, it was a mixed vote on party line to adopt that amendment, and there hasn't been any discussion, though, of that bill yet. So as of right now, it's not scheduled for another hearing, but I will keep watching it. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that it was announced today by Representative Ruley that he is planning to introduce new legislation called the Ohio Childhood Safety Act. That legislation, I haven't seen it yet, I don't think anyone has, but it would mandate new standards for all interior and exterior doors, including materials, hinges, alarmed locks, and airtight seals. It would mandate regular inspections by the fire marshal and fines for school districts who are not in compliance. And of course, all of those mandates come with no appropriation. So just keep watching to see what happens with that legislation. And then just really briefly along those lines, as we've talked about before, the Ohio School Board Association is the professional organization for school board members around the state. That organization, we have lobbyists who work for us, who lobby at the State House on behalf of school board members around the state, and the guidance for their lobbying efforts comes from our OSBA legislative platform. That's a platform that is developed by school board members. We vote on it every year. We vote on recommended updates to it. I just wanted to put on everybody's radar, and then I will share it. There is a proposed update to the legislative platform that I think is being voted on in Bexley, related to updating the plank for student wellness and safety that would include some language about supporting legislation that I think what the board in Bexley did is they tried to take a look at the kinds of firearm legislation that is supported by a majority of people who live in Ohio, and those items are contained in their suggested update to the legislative plank. So once I have a final version of that, I will share it with all of you, and then we can talk about we'll have next month still before the deadline if we want to adopt that resolution. And I guess that doesn't make it part of the platform. That would just be our voice in that process. So I will share that when I have it. And that's it from me. So I think I'm turning it over to Mrs. Coates for an update from Student Learning and Achievement Committee.
Thank you. The Ohio Department of Education came out with the Ohio's Teacher Workforce Report. So I'll be emailing that to all of you so you can read the full report. But basically, as some of you are already aware, enrollment in Ohio's teacher preparation programs decreased 19% between 2015 to 2020. The numbers of students completing a program decreased 26%. There's also been a steady decline in the number of newly credentialed teachers. There are some initiatives in place to fix the pipeline. Two things to note: the department has partnered with the Ohio Department of Higher Education and the deans of Ohio's educator preparation programs to establish a collaborative focused on addressing educator shortages. So in this past fall, the collaborative convened 5 regional educator shortage summits across the state to gather interested parties to work towards solutions at a regional level. And then the department has been working with the Ohio Department of Higher Education and Apprenticeship Ohio to create a teacher apprenticeship program with the expectation that districts would partner with educator preparation programs to fill local needs through apprenticeships. So I will be sending that full report to all of you to review. April is the month of the military child. So just FYI, to recognize the sacrifices that military service members and their families make for our safety and security of our nation. And then I will also be sending you a very interesting study, dual language learners, also known as DLLs, and this refers to 0 to 5-year-old children who simultaneously develop language skills in English and their home language. But 1 in 3 children in the United States are DLLs, and they also make up 13% of children from birth to 5 in Ohio. And so there is in the study a recommendation of support for teachers and families moving forward, so I thought it would be an interesting read for all of us to have. That's my update. Thank you.
Ms. Coates. I think I am turning it over to Mr. Manley for 2 board reports, one from the Workforce Advisory Council and the second from Eastland Fairfield Career and Technical Schools. Mr. Manley?
Thank you. And right, so here we go with the microphone. All right. I got bumped off a board doc, so I'm kind of, anyway, I'm a little out. So the Workforce Development Council, so we met and had a first high school programming showcase, which was really exciting. I was excited to attend, and we had different representatives from various businesses that participated. And thank you to the council for organizing and putting that on and taking us through the schools. The showcase was an opportunity to observe the hands-on learning and interact with students, hearing their goals and their aspirations and their motivation for taking the classes, basically getting a first-hand perspective. It was eye-opening to me to be in those classrooms, and it was a completely different experience. For years I'd heard about these programs, read about them, seen articles and presentations, and watching everyone firsthand in action was really inspiring and moving. And the representatives in the businesses that were attending, we all talked about that, and they were excited as well. So we, just to give you an overview, we started at the main campus and went to Fab Lab. I'd heard all about it, and wow, to walk in, and it's really, really impressive to be in there. So we saw demonstrations on working projects. They showcased different projects that were in process, and yeah, it was really, really exciting. Unbeknownst to me, a lot of the signage that we see all over Gehanna is done by the high school, and I never knew that, and I'm looking at signs now, figuring out which ones possibly were done by our students. So then we went into game design, and there were projects, and the students, some of them talked about their future plans and their goals and directions, and some of them were just doing it because it was a passion. And actually it reminded me of when I was in high school. I took a jewelry class. I just took it because I was interested and thought it'd be fun to make jewelry. And years later I did start my own jewelry business. So you really never know as a student what's going to come down the road. So the important part is like having fun and being inspired and to keep learning and creating. So game design, then we went into business technology, and they had a lot of innovative projects going on, and talked a little bit about that, watching students in action and hearing. It just really was really an experience. DECA, we saw presentations for what we just saw, global aspirations and business plans, really professional and inspirational as well. What a treat that was. Clark Hall, we went into the Science Academy, bioscience, and the projects I had talked about in previous meeting, just eye-opening projects, and the creativity and the inspiration, dedication, curiosity, the networking. It was really fun to witness and talk about that. So the business partners and I, we all toured various segments of the business industry, local, statewide, city representatives, and even national companies. So there's that was really inspirational. Like at the end, we talked about feedback and discussions, and some of the representatives had said they weren't sure, how they would fit in, but that walking through and seeing everything, they had all kinds of ideas on how to engage our students. And, those connections are important to keep us apprised of, what's going on outside, and, how our students can make connections and get, set up for success after graduation. So I'm looking forward to more of the workforce development. And we did just have one more thing, job fair, and record number of businesses. Really nice turnout for the job fairs. So great work's happening at Gehanna, Jefferson. Moving on to Eastland Fairfield, I just want to say again, we are in the process of the superintendent search. We are down to 3 finalists. We had our second round interviews. We're engaging in one more meeting Sunday, stakeholder feedback and discussion. So exciting how this is proceeding, learning a lot, and really having amazing conversations with the other board members. It's a inspiring process, learning and meeting all these candidates. Really a privilege. So yeah, we're going to meet on Sunday. So I'll keep you posted. I know it's hard to wait, but good things. 3 strong candidates. And lastly, Eastland Fairfield, I just want to mention the NHS and THS had their induction ceremony, and Kara Coates gave a great speech, I heard. So that was really nice. I want to just say briefly, the NTHS was started in 1984. We had 25 students from Gahanna High School, so great representation. All the listings of the students and their professions. There was architecture and construction, you know that, bioscience, sports medicine, teaching professions. And the students engaged with 6 other high schools. There's 7 programs represented. Teaching professions is well represented in this, no surprise there, and as well as all the programs. So the induction happened. There were 41 students in total, and just want to thank everyone for their participation and stepping up, and congratulations. So thank you.
Mr. Manley. Next, I've got Mrs. Horn with a report from Gahanna Parks and Rec.
Last Wednesday night, we met at Parks and Rec, and for some of you that I've talked about before, Gahanna's been going through a master plan update that's taken, I think, a little over a year with a lot of community input. That master plan has gone through a couple iterations. They presented and had a open house or a public forum for people to ask questions, I believe a couple months ago at City Council. But we voted to approve the master plan out of the Parks and Rec Board. It's now to City Council for incorporation, and any possible changes that they might want to make, and then it goes into the capital improvement plan, which the city is kind of consolidating all of the projects that they have going on in addition to just Parks and Rec, and then they'll kind of do a sorting process of how all of that is going to get outlined and put into a calendar form for overall work. That master plan, there's a great executive summary. I think it's 16, maybe 18 pages. It's on the Gahanna website, government website, so check that out. One of the major projects that they're going to be working on ties to the new library, and it's linked to literacy. And what they're trying to do with that is connect Big Walnut Trail that goes through Creekside, through Walnut Street, which is right off of Shell Road, kind of around the skate park in the back of it, and connected to the library. The second part of that is from the library to Hamilton Road, again, back behind. The director of Parks and Rec, Stephanie Farrell, met with Dr. Deagle and I last week, and they are interested in getting us, the board, to sign a letter of intent to allow the trail to connect on the back of our property, which is the back of Clark Hall's parking lot, on the other side of the fence. And what they're really looking for is a 20 feet swath of land for the easement, so that 10 feet of that would be the actual trail, and then 5 feet on either side. There's really only 3 business owners that would impact. It's Gatsby's, us as the Board of Education, and then the apartments that are right beside the library. But what that would do is give us a great connection point for people to be able to ride their bikes and get to the library and kind of stay off Granville Street, because Granville Street's pretty busy, and you wouldn't really want people, you can't be on your bikes on the sidewalk, so this would give an alternative route. It's roughly about a $2 million project. There's grants that we've already applied to as Parks and Rec. That's $500,000 to offset that. And it would be in 2 phases, the Shell Road side, which would be probably less work than on the other side, because there's a lot, how it runs across that creek that they would have to take into account. So We can discuss that. I'd like to be able to propose to discuss that at the board workshop in May. And we have the plans, which are really pretty exciting to kind of look at with that as well. The timeline, what they're looking for, so we're in great alignment there, is starting in October. They'll know if they've have received the grant, and they're looking to finish that in the fall of 2025. So you think about all the exciting things that are going to be happening in the fall of 2025, it would just be wonderful. The other thing that we talked about is and I know that there's been signs up across Gahanna, but they're still looking for high school students, if anybody's looking for a job this summer, for the pools and for the various summer camps that Gahanna Parks and Rec offer. And then I also was unaware, so I know with graduation season coming up upon us, other parties, that they have what they call GMAC. It's the Gahanna Mobile Activity Center, which I don't know how I've never heard of that with all the things that we've done, but it basically is a trailer that they rent out that includes tables and chairs, an entertainment system, the big screen, inflatable TV, popcorn machine, snow cone machine, and it's only $250 for the day. I mean, honestly, I was like, this is amazing. So you can rent it, anybody, any residents in Gahanna, schools, community organizations. It just has to be used in Gahanna limits, but you just have to call the city. So I thought that was an interesting thing that I don't know how I was unaware of that. So anyhow, that was it. Thank you.
Mrs. Horn, do we have any slips of public participation tonight? Is there anyone who intended to address the board during public participation that didn't complete a slip? Okay. There's no public participation tonight then. We are going to move on to adoption of the agenda. Are there any recommended changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Madam President, I have a set of resignations that I would like to add to tonight's agenda. Human Resources, letter J, number 1. I would like to ask the board to accept the following resignations. Nicole Engel, Assistant Girls Lacrosse Coach. Stephanie Bells, Educational Aide and Head Girls Lacrosse Coach. Alexis Boshanek, Assistant Girls Lacrosse. And Brooklyn Sims, Assistant Girls Lacrosse.
Thanks, Dr. Deagle. Is there a motion to amend the agenda to include those items?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring,
Yes.
Mrs. Coates,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second? Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Mooring,
We're
sorry.
sticking with the same one. Yes.
Because it was an amendment, it was the same one, so I
You
would
got
yes.
it.
Yes. Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Deagle for the superintendent report.
Thank you so much. And what I'm realizing as I'm getting ready is I have to now go to 150% on my screen. Are any of you facing the same issues? My goodness, is that happening fast? So we, again, have had a busy month, and we've spent a lot of time together as well this month, which I enjoy so much. First, though, I wish Jennifer were here to hear me offer on behalf of all of our central office administrators, and I know the Board of Education offer appreciation to our paraprofessionals during Paraprofessional Recognition Week. We celebrated on April 3rd, and I know our building principals did, recognize our paraprofessionals for what they do for our students every day. And Jennifer was absolutely right when she said that our aides are amazing, they're marvelous, they are extraordinary, and really they're everything to the students that they serve. So we are just so appreciative of their support. And she was also right, we have 95. So we have quite a few that work with our students every day. We had an excellent coffee conversation. I was joined by Mrs. Coates and Mrs. Piccolantonio at Dunkin' Donuts. Of course, Eric was there with us as well. We had wonderful conversation. We had excellent critical questions and very rich dialogue, which I appreciate very much. It's one of the many things I appreciate about our community. Our next coffee is with Mr. Manley and Mrs. Mooring and myself, and that's going to, and Eric, and that's going to be June 7th at 8 a.m. And do we have a location for that one? TBD. All right. State of the Schools was our big event, of course, for April, and I was just really pleased with the support that we had, particularly from the city and the townships, and also our administrators and GJEA as well. The video for the State of the Schools can be found on our website. Right now it's on the Superintendent's page. It's broken into a few parts just to ease viewing, and it's also going to be sent out in our newsletter tomorrow. So please look for that. And I just do want to provide appreciation to Eric Starkey and Judy Hengstebeck for helping us get ready for that. The video was amazing. The slides were incredible, and Eric was very supportive as a critical partner in my speech writing. And then I also really appreciate Jill Elliott and Cliff Hetzel and Scott Gooding being partners in the Q&A and just being so prepared and being teammates of mine on stage. Really appreciate your participation. We do have our high school student art exhibit happening right now downstairs. It is amazing. Do you know the Royal Manor students went through it before they came up here, and one of the students said the high school artists are amazing. It was really neat. They got to see it. In addition to that, though, we have artists from 11 schools, our 11 schools that have been working on the Creekside mural. And they're set to unveil that and have a ribbon cutting on May 13th at noon at the waterfall landing. It's also incorporated into the Urban Arts Festival, so it'll be all part of that event. Unfortunately, we'll be moving our son home from college that weekend, so if you wouldn't mind representing me, I would really appreciate it. My husband Brandon and I attended the Jazz Fest. That was amazing to see our middle school students all the way through high school. We have several jazz bands at the high school perform. OMEA state competition, I know you received the invitation as well, is April 28th and 29th here at Gahanna. So we're going to be hosting 33 bands that weekend and 25 choirs. I've had three favorite ways to spend my time, and I was able to do all three of these in April. And this is not, completely inclusive of everything, but three of my favorite things are visiting classrooms, attending our district events, and then also meeting with our retired educator group. And Eric and I were able to do that, and Cliff as well. We're able to do that this month, and I learned so much about our rich history here, and I know that they helped me become a better leader because I learned from them, and they will share some of their past mistakes and where they've had their success, and it hasn't changed all that much, right? As much as it's changed, a lot has stayed the same, so I appreciate them very much. And then the last thing I just like to share is I'm very proud of the presentations that our administrators provided at the Consortium of State School Boards Association National Conference. Mrs. Piccolantonio and I traveled to that to support our administrators. Jill Elliott and Tia Holloman presented on our equity plan, and Lisa Kelly and Jeffrey Glitt provided information on our mental health model here at Gahanna, and we had people coming up to us throughout the weekend, didn't we, asking for more information and just sharing their appreciation for the information that you shared, Jill, and the rest of the team, so thank you for that. Well done.
Dr. Deagle. I am going to turn it over to Mr. Gooding for a report from Treasurer's Office.
Thank you, and I'm gonna add on to Dr. Deagle's last comment. I've been spending the last 3 days down at the Columbus Convention Center as the president-elect for the Ohio Association of School Business Officials. And yes, one of the finance people came up to me and commended me that there was at that conference in Florida on the great work that you did. So I want to, former colleague of yours, it was Brian Kern. So I'm not going to embarrass him, but I do want to follow up on the OASBO piece. Thank you for letting us be part of the State of the Schools. That was an awesome event. I'm really bad about kind of talking about myself, but I feel like I want to for a second because it's not about me, it's about the district and the representation at this OASBO conference. My throat's sore, my feet hurt, like everything hurts from 3 days of being scripted, which is not easy for me because I can ad-lib a lot and like to talk. So we've been at the conference, and as the president, it's the largest conference attendees we've ever had. We've had 1,000 people. But one of the highlights for me was being on stage and recognizing Cliff as the Business Manager of the Year. That was... So I brought back his poster, but he hid it, so it's not out here. But it was just, for me, it was a highlight for me to be able to recognize Cliff, present him with his award, present awards to mentors of mine that are retiring, and people that I hired and developed in other districts, recognizing awards. It was just amazingly cool, just awesome. Brain is on overload, so I appreciate you doing the legislative piece because I've heard, wow, there's a lot going on. So I've got to let that soak in, and there's going to be a lot of information coming out of this conference that I'll hit you with, but I won't do it tonight because there's just a lot going on, and as soon as we're done, I'm heading back to finish more of the conference and then wrap that up tomorrow. As Daphne said, we had a great finance and facility committee. For me, it felt like the best one we've had that since I've been here, and to get to that strategic plan about the budgeting process. It was just great because the team, I said this Tuesday and I'll say it again, they made it happen. They embraced this new process. They dove in with me, and I think the result that you saw was just amazing. The other piece of that is on the financial report, and I wish Jerry was here too, because when you don't hear much about the financial report, it's a good thing because it was about as boring as it gets, and that's what we want. Our revenue, we're 0.67 ahead of projections, which is great, and we're 1.34% under on the expense side. It's right exactly where we want it to be. So, like I said, good, quiet, boring is good. So that's where we are on that. There are 7 items for your approval in consideration this evening. One is the monthly financial report. There are some appropriation amendments. There are 4 funds that are being adjusted. Fund 007 is for a scholarship fund, and then a donation for the food service fund from the Jefferson Elementary PTO. We've got a couple of local grants in here for the high school gear program and Chapel Field Elementary, some grants there. Student Managed Activity Fund, we've got the high school DECA program, the high school underwater robotics, the high school class of 24, and the high school theater have some things going on. One of the things that I always hate doing is when ODE changes our allocations at the state level, and they take that money, they haven't taken it back, they just reduce the allocation. So it was our Title IIA, Improving Teacher Quality, they reduced that allocation by almost $70,000, so we have to adjust that as well. There is a fund-to-fund transfer. One is for the Jefferson Elementary PTO donation that we talked about. It went into a certain fund. In order for that to go to food service, we have to move it from one fund to the other. And the other is the high school diaspora scholarship, moving it from their activity account into a scholarship fund, which is 007. A couple then and now items for invoices greater than $3,000. We've got the money there. It's just a timing of when the purchase orders were issued. The next item is a new student activity account for the Exceptional Student Club at Royal Manor Elementary. As always, the donations, we can't say enough to thank all of our partners for supporting our kids in our schools and our programs. Donations of just under $90,000. It's amazing. We appreciate that and continue to thank them for that. And finally, a new scholarship, which I was talking about, the DS4 scholarship, with establishing that and getting that approved with the appropriation, but also the recognition of the account. That is all I have for you this evening.
Mr. Gooding, as Mr. Gooding said, we have 7 items for action under financial business. So is there a motion to approve financial business items H1 through H7?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion about these items? Okay. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates? Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Elliott for a report from Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you very much. So we have one agenda item in this section this evening that we are recommending a new math curriculum tool. You recently heard about the math vetting process that was run by our math curriculum coordinator, Sharon Soriano, a very thorough process. It included site visits and resource vetting and piloting and lots of dialogue and feedback from our teaching staff. So we're very appreciative of everyone that participated in that process. Ultimately, we landed on Bridges, and Bridges Mathematics is a comprehensive math curriculum that has specific components related to fluency, problem solving, math reasoning, and also provides nice vertical alignment across the grades. We also will be getting a balance of both large and small group instruction, lots of visual models, manipulatives, interactive opportunities for kids, and there are assessments that come along with it, which is nice to help our teachers with where our students' understandings are, skills, and the follow-up that needs to come to continue their math progression. A couple other things I want to highlight. As Mr. Manley mentioned, we did have the What's Next Job Fair and Career Fair that the Workforce Development Advisory Council supported. We had 20 companies and post-secondary institutions, so that was a wonderful event on April 11th. We invite the companies in to support students who maybe don't have post-high school plans yet and to really see the opportunities that are available for them. I also wanted to talk about the Washington, D.C. trip that's coming up. We have 265 students and 27 staff members that will be headed to Washington, D.C. May 16th through the 19th. They'll be traveling on coach buses this year, which is a different travel method for us, and some of the stops they'll have are to Gettysburg, George Washington's home and resting place in Mount Vernon, the Spy Museum, the Smithsonian American History Museum, the African American History Museum. They will get to witness the Arlington National Cemetery changing of the guard. This year we don't get to participate in it. It just didn't work out with the schedule, as well as several of the war memorials. And just a great opportunity to see history that the students have been learning about, come to life for them. So seeing the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, a 4-day trip. They will be very tired when they get back, but a wonderful opportunity. I still remember my 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. When I was a student in Gahanna. And another exciting piece is there is a new program that's offered in partnership with the Ohio Department of Education that provides grant funding for up to $1,000 for families that qualify. And we just learned that our travel company for next year has been accepted in that program. So that's a great opportunity to increase our participation at all 3 middle schools. 2 more things. Just wanted to give you the update that Monday afternoon is our next Parent Advisory Committee meeting for our Equity and Access Plan. So we'll be giving updates and our accountability check with them. And then lastly, we had previously shared in a board report and at the State of the Schools event that we are embarking on a process to study the high school schedule for some possible changes in the 24-25 school year. So Mrs. Williams has been working with the steering committee. They have surveys ready for families, and those will be coming out very soon, as well as we'll have an in-person opportunity to invite interested staff members and family members to come in, have some conversations about the feedback we've already received, the feedback that will come from the surveys and possible options, just looking at strengths and challenges of those. So that information will be out shortly. We hope to do that in early May.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Elliott. As she mentioned, there is one item for action in this section, and that is item I3, which is approval for item I2. Is there a motion to approve approval of the K-5 math curriculum purchase under letter I?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion? I guess I just want to reiterate the thanks to Mrs. Soriano and to you and Mrs. Holloman for making sure that we had opportunity to digest. There was a lot of information, so giving us the opportunity to digest that information, and then we had a very long discussion about the recommendation where we got to hear all about the process for selection and the plan for implementation. Just want to thank you again and the team for that. Any additional discussion about that item? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carried.
There are 27 items for action under Human Resources. Is there a motion to approve Human Resource items J1 through J27? Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any discussion about any of these items?
I'll just
Go
call
ahead, Mrs.
attention to
Elliott.
a few things.
Yep.
As you mentioned, lots of items. The HR office continues to be busy. There are 12 certified staff members before you this evening. We have 2 retirements. We're always thankful to our retirees. Renee Roop, head cook at East, and Linda Snyder. Or I'm sorry, I think I switched those around. No, Renee is the head cook. Linda is the educational aide. My apologies. So we're very appreciative of their work in the district and wish them well in retirement. And then I also wanted to call attention to the summer school staff motions. We had summer school registration open up this week. We already have 271 registrations. Jen Korn and the summer school administrators have been working really hard to get all of our staff in place. We're grateful to be able to fund summer school through ESSER dollars this year. And so we're excited about those motion items.
Mrs. Elliott, any additional discussion? Mr. Manley, did you have something? You look like you were ready. You don't have to. You just look like you were.
No, I just want to say a thank you to everyone for their service and making such a difference in so many lives for so many years, and just wish everyone the best. And thank you.
Mr. Manley, any other questions, discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley? Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer and award winner, Mr. Hetzel.
Feels like a curse. But thank you very much. And I do want to reiterate what everybody said since you brought that up. Scott has done a fantastic job running the conference with really high energy. I can tell everybody has really enjoyed that. I feel like Dr. Deagle took the lead on the state of the schools, and it was a wonderful event. And I missed Jill's presentation, but I'm confident it was fantastic. And I'm just excited to be a part of a team and a board that's really interactive and positive like this. So thank you. I have 8 items on the agenda tonight from operations. 5 of them are from technology. And so Matt and I have walked through all of those, competitively shopped those. Most of that is on a replacement schedule. But if we need any clarification clarifications, please let me know, but I feel really confident about that direction, and we're kind of maintaining the momentum from the past that we've been moving forward with. Before I get into a couple of the other items, every month I've been trying to do a focus on a department as I learn the organization, and focused on a process walk through transportation, sometimes not having much of a choice, but as we're transitioning leadership, having the opportunity to kind of go from the buses into the organization, it's been great. Jerry, the drivers are fantastic, the office is wonderful, and it's not easy. It's got complications, it's busy, everybody's in a hurry, especially those that they have to drive around, and I think they do a wonderful job. But learning more about fleet maintenance, our radio system is probably in need of an upgrade. Can we piggyback that on top of a two-way radio upgrade we're looking at with our safety grant to enhance interoperability there? Our routing, we have an opportunity to upgrade our software, and I believe with new leadership in the department, we're going to focus on some of those things and some efficiencies. Looking at our handbook for procedural and more focused on some of our legal requirements that we need to meet, kind of making sure it's inclusive of all those types of pieces of information, especially as we bring in new drivers, So sometimes we're bringing in new people that haven't had a lot of familiarity with it, so we want to make sure they have access to that kind of information. And then continue to focus on recruitment and retention in that department. But it's been great working with them, and Krista Parkey will be on board on the 28th, which is a Friday. We're going to have a department meeting on Thursday, which was scheduled, and then I think she just wants to come in and kind of ride along on Friday, and then we'll hit the ground running on Monday. So after that, some of the other bigger ticket items you'll see on the agenda tonight: asphalt improvements. We had great participation from bidders this year, so we're looking at Royal Manor. We started with bus loop improvement, which I think is much needed. Same with Chapel Field. But as we evaluated it, the opportunity to improve our curbing and our sidewalks, and then the parking lots associated with those sites, we thought we would introduce those as an alternate to see what kind of bids we could get back, and they came back very competitive. So Royal Manor, with the bus loop, sidewalk, and curbing, and the additional parking lot work, came in totaling about $162,500, and then Chapel Field, almost 180, and then the parking lot that's shared with Middle School West, which will kind of by proxy receive an upgrade on their site, which I think is a good thing as well. We were able to package that for about $415,000, which was much less than we had budgeted for, and really the design estimate was. So we felt very, very good about that. You're also going to have a cell tower amendment on the agenda. This is the culmination of, I think, of probably a year's worth of work, because we took down the old cell tower last year, and then we put temporary service in place on our high school site right behind the maintenance building, and this was a move to close all of that out and to co-locate two tenants on one pole, which is sitting there now. It'll be AT&T and T-Mobile, and that'll allow us to move the temporary service out. It's already designed into the high school plan, and then generate about $3,000 a month in income for us, and we also get a $50,000 signing bonus. So all of that will be very helpful, I think, with everything that we have going on. So that is on the agenda as well. And then finally, I just wanted to bring up that I've been working with the team and buildings on finalizing all of our summer capital improvement projects, going against our PI dollars and other funding sources we have available. So very close to having all of that finalized and booked for the summer, and I expect to be able to have a report for the board next month on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hetzel. As Mr. Hetzel said, there are 8 items for action under letter K. Is there a motion to approve items K2 through K9? Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any questions for Mr. Hetzel or any discussion about any of these items? Go ahead, Mrs. Mooring.
Hats off on the negotiation on the cell tower, because isn't it 1,000 more a month from the last contract and 10,000 more in your signing bonus?
My understanding is the payments were based on quarterly payments, so it was just over 1,000 a month before, and now we're 3,000 a month. So, yeah. Good.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on letter L. There are 2 items for action under letter L. Is there a motion to approve items L1 through L2?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. I just want to note, I think it says it on the agenda, but this is a second read of the policies that are up for a vote today. They first came to the board last month. And I'm just going through this because this is a new process this year for us. So Policy Committee is now an internal committee. On that committee are board members, Mr. Manley and Mrs. Coates, who meet with Dr. Deagle and subject matter experts to review recommendations from our a company that we work, or an organization that we work with. Neola is a statewide organization that reviews changes in state and federal law and helps us make sure that our policies are updated in accordance with those changes. I guess not just changes in state and federal law, but also case law. They review court cases and they help make recommendations to us. Those recommendations then go to the policy committee, who review and make decisions about how we want to update our policies, and then they come to the board for a first reading, and then they come the following month for a second reading. Both of those meetings are opportunities if there's anyone from the public who wants to speak or during public participation about those policies. They have 2 regular board meetings at which to do that. Board members then essentially have 2 months to review the recommended changes, and then so these are on our agenda tonight for an actual vote. And then the second item that we are voting on is our SRO contract, and for the first time, I think this is the first time, we also now have a very detailed memo of understanding that accompanies that SRO contract. I just want to give a very heartfelt thank you to Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Elliott, Chief Spence, Dr. Deagle. I hope I'm not missing anyone. I think that's everybody who worked on that memo of understanding. That's something that's really, it's really important because not only does it reflect the current status of law, but it also, that's our opportunity, both from the district and from the city, to really lay out what our intent is behind that program. So thank you to everybody who worked on it. It's been a long process. Any additional discussion about those items? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll one last time?
I can't. All
Moved
Mrs.
too
Co-
fast.
No, we're good. I had to flip on one more page. Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
It is 8:18 p.m. and we're adjourned.